core business, everything is about the child-centered focus. But beyond that, it really is about being professional.
And you're just literally back off the plane.
I have stepped off the plane from Dubai. I knew that I've been thinking about it for years, and I thought, get on with it. It's now or never.
There'll be others, I presume, that offer a similar service.
There are others. He said, no, you've got them now. And I thought, oh my God, he's believed everything I said. I've got business. We're in business. Oh. I had a severe physical reaction to it all. I don't know how I managed to drive back to the airport. Our business has grown at a slower pace in some of those countries, but they're our markets. And she said, oh, you've got the best job in the world. They give them a bowl of pasta because they never give them meat because it's too expensive. He's going to be in big trouble. Grandpa's really angry with him because he lied to Grandpa. Grandpa's really angry. Love mixing up the cultures, mixing up people. Get them being comfortable, being uncomfortable. And all these hats I have to wear. Oh my goodness. And really shouting at my female staff was not the right way. So the students are not just mixing with Brits, they're mixing with children from all over the world. I received an MBE for services to young people. Would I then be happy to accept it? So at that point, yeah! All these fabulous business plans, they're all going to be multimillionaires in 10 minutes. And they
If you have been enjoying listening to the stories of entrepreneurs across Edinburgh, then why not subscribe? If you're on YouTube, you can hit the red button down below and hit the bell to get notifications. Or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, then subscribe to the podcast. We hope you enjoy the show.
Lorna, thank you so much for coming on and joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about Academic Families.
Well, gosh, we started 11 years ago, and Academic Families are now a global international education agency, and we recruit families from around the world when they want to send their child to for education overseas, primarily in the UK, and we help them find the best match boarding school for their child. Not always one that they thought about, but we help match them. And then we look after them with guardianship. So that's where everything that they would ask their sister to do, if their sister was based in the UK, then we do all of that. But actually, we're a big sister. So we look after whatever the parents ask for, but actually, we tell them what needs to be done as well, because we're a big sister. And we look after them. And then we've got a very good market from South America, from Mexico. And those children, we actually take them on half-term trips. So we've developed a whole line in half-term trips, taking the students out of the UK. And then we also take schools, British boarding schools. We take them overseas into new markets to recruit students. So in 11 years, we've come a long journey. We're still only partway in that journey. But it's all things to do with international education.
And you're just literally back off the plane.
I have stepped off the plane from Dubai, yes.
With how many children?
In my group we'd had 24 children, but in total we've got 70 children that we've got in Dubai in 3 groups.
Wow, that sounds
and lots of staff.
Rather
and
you
lots
than me.
Of staff.
Incredible. Wow. So how did this all begin? How did the idea, and tell us a little bit of the journey into the business?
Gosh. I have had an international career. We've lived and worked in a number of countries overseas. And I am a mum, and a successful mum with two great children who we've got through. They're now adults. And combining my thirst for business, my thirst for international, and my experience of international, and also bringing up children and supporting them, I was asked by lots of people, could we help with their child in the UK? And so when we returned to live in the UK, then that was when we started with Academic Families.
And so were people asking that whilst you were overseas then? So the seed of the idea was born over there, right? Okay.
Yes. Also, my parents, because we're 3 children, and the 3 of us have all lived overseas at various points. So my parents were without their grandchildren, so they actually hosted some students, and so we'd come to know about the concept and the idea of guardianship through them. But originally, I have developed it significantly further from those original days.
Yeah. Wow.
So
niche,
very niche.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I remember when we met a few years ago, and it takes a little bit of getting like, so what is it? Because it's just something you don't even really think about or realize exists, but actually is such a crucial part of a lot of these kids' lives, right?
Yes.
And to that point then, Lorna, would you say that, have you developed the guardianship kind of model, if you like, within the UK? Or there'll be others, I presume, that offer a similar service?
Others. All got compared, but not as good as us. No, we are... in everything we do, I believe we have to do the best. Our core business, everything is about the child-centered focus. But beyond that, it really is about being professional. And we are accredited with all the top accreditations that we can, and we have to work very hard at that. And so there is a Aegis, the Association for the Education of International and Guardianship of International Students, Aegis, and we have the highest accreditation there. So there are a number of other guardian agencies, but there are a few of them that are actually UK-wide. We started in Edinburgh, but we are UK-wide. We actually place students also in Canada and also in Switzerland. But on the guardianship side, we're throughout the UK. And our biggest limitation to growth and to scale was, in fact, our guardianship and our hosting. I mean, Alex, you know about the hosting, and requested for support on that. But we've managed to crack all of that. So there are competitors, but they're some of them are kitchen table guardians. Just have a few kids, but not to the extent that we do.
Wow, incredible. So do you remember like your first kid? You get back, you've kind of been dabbling in it. You were away, and then what was that point where you were like, oh, okay, this is a business. I'm going to do this as a business.
So what happened was. Because my parents had hosted when I knew, and the guardianship agency that they had gone was very small. They'd been with was very small, and it actually went under. And the administrator was available, so I knew that I'd been thinking about it for years, and I thought, get on with it. It's now or never. So it was now. And Eleanor came on board. She told me what I needed to know and learn about guardianship. I had all the other business skills. And then in October, 11 years ago, we went down to Cambridge to meet an agent, a Ukrainian agent that she knew. And we met him, and he was very, very smooth. He was a really nice guy, and everything was great. And he listened, and I gave him my pitch, told him everything that we were doing. We'd got the name, we were all set up. And then he said, yeah, great. You can have 3 students. I'll come with you. You can have 3 students. And I went, oh, okay. He said, yes. I said, well, when? He said, because it's October, so school's already started. We're at half term. He said, no, you've got them now. And I just thought, oh my God, he's believed everything I said. I've got business. We're in business. Oh, we're looking after 3 children. I've got 2 of my own now. I've got 3 of somebody else's. And that was the beginning. I had a severe physical reaction to it all. I don't know how I managed to drive back to the airport. It was just, yeah. But that was it. Academic Families was born. I had given birth to my first 3 children, and that was it. It kind of followed on a bit, actually, when I was an overseas student coordinator when I was at St Andrews University, and I looked after all these international students. Yeah. So in early days. So, yes, I've always been looking after international kids.
And so for those first 3 kids, was it you that was doing the guardianship for them, or did you have someone?
Oh, no. I try very hard not to have the children stay with me hosting. They're all full-time at school, at boarding school. I've always looked for other people to do that because I can't run the business and look after them. Especially if things are happening at the weekend that I need to solve for other students. So no, I tend not to. I do host sometimes, but I tend not to. So I tend to host when I've got to go at midnight and collect a naughty child from somewhere. But apart from that, I generally don't.
Yeah. But you started off day one then with that mindset of I'm not going to be the host. Yes. I need to run the business, which I guess is quite advanced in terms of thinking, because a lot of people just get into it, become the technician, and then over time have to wean themselves off of that. But you didn't really do it that way.
No, and I'd say the other guardian businesses that are there, then they tend to have come out of school. They've been in boarding houses or boarding schools in some format, and they've come from education. Mm-hmm. My team and I obviously was starting it, have come from living overseas and having to educate my children internationally, having to think about all those sort of practical implications, and being an entrepreneur and a businesswoman, and taking it from a different different aspect. And I think that's part of what's that helps us stand apart from the competitors, because the key people in my team have all lived abroad. Our parents have sent their kids to school or to university or whatever, or overseas, and so we really understand what they're going through.
Yeah. And that doesn't happen with some of the other competitors that you might have. They won't have that same depth of experience.
No, they've been in boarding houses, so they've received children and they've looked after children, but they haven't actually lived overseas and
I would imagine that's a massive competitive advantage for you to be able to kind of relate to people in that international manner.
Yes, but I think we're past that side of it. And earlier in the journey, which I think we can talk about, I bought another Guardian agency and absorbed that.
Okay.
But I mean, always when I've been challenged, what are my growth plans? We're past buying a guardianship agency in the UK because we can grow. We've got. We can manage everything we need to in the UK, and we have capacity for as much as we can get. Our growth plans are looking internationally in other countries, which is is a little bit harder.
And was that always the plan, to kind of be thinking internationally for your guardianship? Yeah.
Well, for everything, yes.
Yeah.
There's one area that we're still not really. We're now recruiting students from around the world, bringing them into the UK to the best matched boarding schools for them, and we're looking after them. We look after other children that we haven't placed as well because they've come to school somehow. So our model is bringing more students in, and unlike our competitors on the placement side, we haven't gone for the established markets: China, Hong Kong, Russia, Ukraine, as were Nigeria, Ghana. We've not gone for those markets. We've gone for our own markets where we have our own connections and are developing those. So our business has grown at a slower pace in some of those countries, but they're our markets. And so we've had a different strategy from jumping on board, copycatting other people.
Yeah. And you mentioned the problem that you solved around finding the hosts and the guardians as well. How much of a problem was that at the start?
Massive. And my little black book and various friends' little black books, none of our friends or contacts were safe. In fact, I play tennis in the leagues in Edinburgh or east of Scotland, in fact. And I mean, still when I meet people, I can't, they all say, oh yes, you're the one who was wanting me to host. Everybody, if I thought they had the right values and were able, then I would have to ask them to host. And so we got started in Edinburgh and Scotland, but then very hard to move and actually become UK wide. And we developed. I have a one host that we were recruiting, and she said to Ronnie, my hosting manager, she said, oh, you've got the best job in the world. I would love to talk to potential hosts and see if they're the right people. Yeah. And Ronnie went, oh, Lorna, you've got to get Sarah. And Sarah came on board. Yeah. So it's about finding people who do that. And so we automate as much as we can, all our admin and all our forms and all our application. But then I now have Sarah, and she talks to she listens to them very much 2 ears and one mouth, and makes sure that people have the right values. And then we bring them on. We get them by referral, and then we do a lot of Facebook advertising has worked for us.
And so just to be kind of clear, for anyone listening to this as well, so a host will typically do what? What's their requirement?
You need to have the right values. You need to want to support an international student at school in the UK. You're hosting them on occasional weekends. So start of term, end of term, half term. I think we all know that. Then at the quarter and 3/4 points, there's an exeat, a leave weekend, whatever it's called at a school, where children come out of school and they need a weekend. They want to stay with the family. So that's when we want families who want to support them and help them. Yeah. But the benefit for the family is it's bringing international into your home. Yeah. So where some of them have young children, some of them have teenage children, similar age to the children that they would be hosting. Some of them are empty nesters, some of them are active young grandparents, some of them have never had children. It doesn't matter. It's the fact that they want to support those children, and they do it, and they're not doing it to make money. We refund expenses, so they're never out of pocket, but we want them to be interested in the students. Nice. And once we understood who our personas are, who our different people are, and how to reach them, and how to screen them. And we have a very rigorous process, registration and screening process that we have to go through, which so the average cost of recruiting a host is enormous, but safeguarding is paramount. We have to make sure that they're all absolutely the right people.
Right. Nice.
It's so interesting, that kind of switch to realize and understand who the right, it's like, okay, well, we'll just give them money. And it's like, well, actually, if it's driven by money, it's probably, like that's such an interesting, place to end up and realize like, oh, that isn't the answer. Actually, these people do it for the reasons you've listed, to do with bringing it in and actually just being like, oh, yeah, a couple $100 a month. It's like, well, if that's why you're doing it, it's probably not.
The thing is, the market, there are a lot of people who host for language schools. And so they will have a child stay with them and then their child's out all day, normally in the summer holidays at school. And that's not what we're looking for. They just literally have them and they give them a bowl of pasta because they never give them meat because it's too expensive. But our children all like meat. But so we give them more money so they can get some meat. But it's not so that their kids are out. We want people who want to engage.
Yeah.
And if you have a dog, which most families do, and you take your children out for that dog walk, don't want to go, then our students, international students, have to go too.
Yeah.
If you want your kids to set the table or clear the table, then our kids do it too. Yeah. And it's about them becoming part of the family. And we have so many success stories, especially we had of children being truly embraced within the family. And often if the host is a grandparent, for example, they will become very much involved with the grandchildren as well. And we have lots of those stories with our children. And we have a lovely one where there was one boy who was he was a little bit naughty. He'd gone off and stayed with a friend, and it hadn't quite worked out. They actually ended up thinking they were going to stay in an Airbnb, which they couldn't do, but we found out. And so we called up the host and said, he said, and we all checked with his parents and everything, and he was going to stay with a friend's uncle, and that wasn't what's happened. So he needs to come back. She said, well, his room's not ready. It's got stuff on the bed and it's a bit cold. I said, I don't think that will matter. So anyway, I said, well, we can go and get him. She said, no, it's fine. Her husband would go and get him. So they did. Meanwhile, she said her grandson was there and he was 10 and he was saying, oh, Granny. She said, what? And he named the boy and he said, he's going to be in big trouble. Grandpa's really angry with him because he lied to Grandpa. Grandpa's really angry. She said, yes. And she said, and it was very interesting because her grandchild was on that journey and realized, that this boy was going to be in big trouble. And so it's good. And the grandchildren learn that, that they are part of that. They're learning about the culture. They're learning about role models and discipline. And so, for hosting for many families, in particular boys, unfortunately, in Scotland, but girls too, they're never keen on that school trip. Should we go off to France or Germany or Spain or wherever it is? Because they don't want to stay with a random family. And so what they learn by hosting, they learn that they are that random family. This child has come halfway or come from somewhere around the world and is probably speaking another language that they're not used to and is now having to stay with a random family with them. And so that the children can understand that how brave they are and how actually it was okay and they had fun and they're nice. And so hopefully our children, they will get that opportunity to go on a school trip or to go on exchange, to go off without their parents to another country, then they will be more comfortable and willing to go and do that. I would dearly love to get them all to go to school in China or Mexico or any of the countries that we have. I could place Scottish, British students in schools around the world. Sadly, it's always a little bit difficult. People are not so keen to go from Britain, but I would love to get them all over. I love mixing up the cultures, mixing up people. Get them being comfortable, being uncomfortable.
Yeah, okay.
Children they've got to, you can't just stay in Britain and just stay at school with and only know people like you. You have to understand that these internationals they are just like you, but they're just a little bit different to start with until you understand and you get through the language and the culture and the religion and the whatever else it is that makes them slightly different, that actually fundamentally they're just the same as you. And they need to, and I really enjoy seeing that mixing up and that confidence grow.
Yeah, amazing. So you had your 3.
Oh, sorry.
Yes,
started. Yes.
You had to the beginning. And you're growing 10, 20, 50. What were some of the kind of the early growing pains as you expanded that, that
well, hosting was always a limit. I went on Scotland Can Do Scale program and was always told that, well, we were a bit niche and, we're a service business and international, it's all export and everything. And we have the host and everything was just, be
and were you getting that from a lot of people then or just?
Well, Bill Alt, who heads up the MIT business school. He said, "Oh, Lorna, great, but it is still difficult to scale a service business like yours." So I'm in touch with Bill. We've managed it, Bill. We're managing it. So anyway, but fintech may be easier in some regards, but that doesn't mean you can't. Got to believe and to do. So sorry, what was the question?
So yes, but I guess that I was talking about early growing pains.
Oh, growing pains. Oh gosh, I was advised by KPMG. They were my accountant, and on the small business program, and they totally missed the fact that I reached my VAT threshold. And they thought that for some reason I know all the reasons why they thought, but anyway, so we had a little hiccup with that, and that became a huge stress, which we overcame, and there was a bit of an issue. They managed to financially sort that one out with the tax man. Anyway, so we got it all sorted out, but that was an unnecessary pain. But employing people, gosh, that was difficult too. And getting the HR advice, that was difficult. All this stuff and all these hats I have to wear. Oh my goodness. I just want to do business development. That's what I want to do. I want to grow the business. Yeah. I don't want to be the IT director. I don't want to be the HR director. I want to be out there with the kids and growing the business, meeting the families. But that's a real thing as a founder. And I'm a sole founder, although Richard, my husband, is a partner. But yeah, it's hard when you have to do everything and you have to develop that expertise. I am the Microsoft, the IT, well, everything I have to do. And when we get a new challenge, then it's me. But that's the same as all entrepreneurs, all startups. It is a challenge. You don't know what you don't know yet. When I started with Entrepreneurial Spark, Jim Duffy said, the big speech, and it was all about 10 years you had to before you really could get a business going. And I had a mentor from the Investors and People, and he was great. He said, "Yeah, well, when you get 10 employees, Lorna, that's when it really all comes together because everybody's got their hat, and I can stop wearing them all." We've got 18 employees now. We're just about to recruit some more. I find it challenging recruiting people, getting the right ones.
And then the direct employees, but you've got a network of the...
I've got more. And then,
the
hosts, loads of hosts and people in other countries as well and whatever. But these are our full-time equivalent, 18. And maybe Jim was right about the 10 years. We're at 11 now, so but I still need to stop doing operational. I still need to rise above it and have people to do everything, so I can just sit and direct. I don't think it'll quite work that way, but anyway.
And you're a real doer, the get stuff done type individual. Set yourself a target and go for it. So what are the positives of that, and what are maybe some of the downsides that you've experienced along the way?
Well, the positives are self-belief is very important.
Yeah.
I have to say, I have set up an education charity. I set up a franchise business. I have done other things first, and I think it was when I set up one of my charities that I was then going out raising money, and it's an education charity in Kenya, raising school fees for kids to keep them in education, slum kids primarily. And so I felt that I had not quite the moral high ground, but I felt very able to go and ask people to support them because they weren't supporting me. We were supporting these kids, and everybody should be supporting, poor children have an education and develop. And I think that has stood me in very good stead, having that skill and developing that skill to go out and confidently and ask people to support. So when it came to supporting my business and growing it, I found that my skills over the years have developed in being able to sell and convince and bring people on the journey. And lead them, and I enjoy it. But there are lots of challenges along the way. I think you have to stay true to your values. Yeah. If you stay true to your values, then it helps you make the right decisions. Yeah. And don't be put off by people telling you can't do it. Yeah. I know you have to accept that there's certain things that you don't do. When we've stopped doing lots of things. We're nimble. We're very nimble and agile. So we do pivot. We have pivoted.
Tick.
Sorry, there you go.
Yes, but it's pivoting. It's not failing at something and you stop doing it. It's pivoting. It's fine. And we're good. We find the opportunities. Yeah. And we go for them. And we're able to do that. And how
do the team keep a
up.
pace
Keep
with
up.
that, because I think that when I reference, listen, there's tons of upsides. When I said the downsides, what I was saying there is like, in terms of pace and actually kind of almost having a team that are, because I guess you've got a team as well who are there and caring for, they're nurturing and they're really caring for.
But they have
kids,
to be
but
resilient.
They have to be at pace.
They
as
have
well.
to be at pace. They have to enjoy. They have to thrive on dynamism and problems. In our guardianship team, everything's all set up, and then the child has an invitation from a friend. So the parents say, they're not going to go with the hosting, or they're not doing this. They're doing something else. So now you've got to change everything you've just set up. You've got to change a driver, a host. You've got to apologise. You've just begged them to have a child. Now they're not having them. You've got to and you've got to tell school. You've got lots of things to do, and so they need to be fast paced. And that's where we found it with recruiting people. Sometimes they want a just straightforward job, and it's not. It's not straightforward. No 2 days are the same. We've had various crises and hiccups and on a trip, and we just need everybody just has to pull together and solve it. COVID was just an example of that we just all had to just dig in deep. We could have just hung up our hats and that was it. We had 350 odd students, and then we had to go in enormous effort to send them all away. Yeah. And we left. We had 17 who stayed, who had an amazing time, and they were amazing, but. We got rid of all these people. Then I had to work out what's my business, and my clients all owed me money. We had a contract, but a lot of them said, "Well, I don't care. My child won't come back, or I'm not going to pay you, with the money that we owe you." And I said, "Well, but I need to pay us. It's a contract, and I've got a business to and people to employing them and whatever, and I don't care." So that was so COVID was very, very difficult, but. We spent a lot of time and energy on automating and systemizing the business through COVID, actually it was quite good without having any 17, but hardly having anybody to look after or to respond to, so we could actually just focus and get on with it. And that's when we really drilled into processes, procedure systems, and get the business and a fantastic CRM system that we built that really drives the business and has enabled us to scale. And I think it was probably faster because of COVID. We took a huge financial hit, of course, but having that time and not sitting back, and everybody else saying, they were doing their gardening and their DIY and all these things. My goodness, we were working flat out. I had to furlough some of my staff because they weren't the guardianship team. They had nobody really to look after. But the rest of us really, we had to buckle down on, and that helped us move.
So it was a bit of a blessing almost. I mean, it's maybe a terrible way to look at it, but you used that time well.
Yes, I don't think it was a blessing in any regard.
Yeah,
I think we made the most. Yes, clouds having silver linings. I think. Yes. So we made the most of it.
Yeah.
We worked very hard to our advantage and came out stronger.
Yep.
Yeah, and also our market wasn't so. China and Chinese students were they got stuck really behind after COVID, and so many of our competitors were looking at were very, very entrenched in the Chinese market. We were never there. We have some Chinese, we always did, and we like the Chinese market, but we've been looking at other geographic markets, and so it meant that we were able to bounce back, develop, move on faster than others.
Amazing. How have you found dealing with different cultures from a business point of view? Those conversations about not paying invoices. That must be, you're dealing with so many cultures. Like, how do you navigate?
Well, I think the thing is fundamentally we're dealing with ultra high net worth and high net worth parents on the whole, and probably most of them are successful business people and business owners or employees. They're in high positions. They're used to doing business. Normally, there'll be one of them in the family that will have good English. But I have currently, I think I've got 9 nationalities in the team. So we have lots of that. We can speak with everybody that we need to be able to speak in their own tongue if that's what is required. But all of these people, the captains of industry in particular, they're used to making massive decisions. But we're now talking about their child, and it's so different, so different. And we had a Lebanese father who found it very difficult, his son being away, and he would shout at my staff if they didn't do what he wanted them to do. and we got to the stage when I had to have a word with him and see that culturally what he was doing and I understood his frustrations and his nervousness and everything, but he was vocalizing it in the wrong method and really shouting at my female staff was not the right way. We were trying to help him. We are trying to help him. And so he was quite upset that it had been perceived so badly or poorly. And so he modified his behavior and we were all worked out really well. So we understand, we know all the culture, we understand the cultures. And Lisa, who works for me, she was our Chinese interpreter, I originally thought, well, she will spend her time explaining to the Chinese parents the way it works here. Yeah. But that was only half the job, as Lisa made us very aware of. The other half was she was making sure that we understand the Chinese way of thinking and the parents and their issues. And that has been hugely beneficial to have some people in the team who understand those cultures. And my team, many of us who have lived overseas as well. So we understand the other cultures and we can make a good go at the other ones that we haven't personally experienced of. And I think that's very important to be able to understand. But at the end of the day, they're interested in the UK. So we have to help them on that journey and find that way that for them to understand our culture and why we have some funny rules and some funny school rules and funny, visa rules and funny things. We just have to help them. So, yeah.
And Lorna, you've said before that, obviously your job is to kind of make things kind of go right and smoothly. And of course, people will just say, well, that's what we're paying for. But your real value comes when things go wrong as well?
Yes.
Is that, tell us a bit more about that.
Well, I think on the whole, parents and families don't really understand what guardianship is. And I suspect that people listening, watching won't really have heard of guardianship before. It is very niche. And I guess like an insurance policy, it's really when things go wrong that you realise the value of what you've got. And that's the case that we find that parents, when if we've placed the student and they're in the right school, and then they tell us, this really was the right school, and they can't, they're so happy because the child's so happy and it's a perfect place for them, and that's great when we hear that. But also when things go wrong in the guardianship side, when we had one boy who was flying and he had 5.5 months left on his passport, British passport, he was Kenyan, but with a British passport, and he was refused flight. KLM said no, it had to be 6 months. They were actually wrong. He was correct. He could fly on it, but anyway, they refused. The mother, obviously, his mum was up to high dose. She thought she'd have to jump on a plane, come over here, sort out his visa, all the rest. Okay, his passport, rather, everything. Well, she'd got academic families on her side. So when we realised what had happened at check-in, so we got the driver to bring him back. We phoned the visa office, the passport office in Glasgow. We got the driver then to, instead of bringing him back to the office, he then went to Livingston. He went to the passport, to the big post office there, picked up the form, filled out the form for the application for the passport. We'd already got him the last visa, the passport appointment for the day. Drove him through, had the appointment, drove him back. We'd set up with a host for him to stay. Took him to the host, dropped him off. Driver went home. Next morning, he went back to Glasgow. Oh, he'd paid for it as well, or we'd paid for it online, whatever. Collected the passport on the express service, came back, got the boy, and got him on the flight 24 hours later. And his parents couldn't believe it. Well, no, could we? We were very proud of what we'd achieved. So it's things like that. That would have cost them a fortune to come back, and what a mess and everything. But we solved it, and that's what we do. And parents are always saying to us, what would we have done without you? And they don't know how to solve some of the problems. It's not just the fact that they're not here to solve them; they don't know how to solve them. But we're very good. We're very good. We've had a boy today actually who's come back. He's come back from the trip in Dubai, and he's meeting his mother in Madrid. She's come over from elsewhere, and but he's never flown on his own, and his parents were really worried. He said, "It's okay, don't worry." So we've got him taken, he was doing an activity, he was actually climbing the O2. So after he'd climbed the O2 arena in London, the driver picked him up, took him to Heathrow. We had airside assistance. They met him off the car, took him through immigration, took him through the check-in, immigration, and then waited with him until the flight was about to leave, airside. Flight was about to leave, and then they hand them over to the departure gate to the staff, and he gets on the plane. He can't get lost. He can't lose his passport. Nothing can happen. And then he gets off at the other side and meets mum. And that was organised sort of half an hour before the boy was to go, because the parents were in a panic that he wouldn't know what to do. So all those problems, and they just, I can't believe it. Everything we ask you, you've got a solution. So that's what we do.
I remember being 13 and just being chucked on a flight to Belgium by myself, just as like a pen pal. But I remember there was such a moment for me going through an airport by myself. I think I was 13 or 14, and it was. But I guess it's part of what you're trying to nurture as well. It's like you have some kids whose parents are worried about that, but it's all about giving them the opportunities and supporting them where they need the support, right?
Exactly. And that support changes as they grow older as well. We used to just give them a SIM card with and get them to get the voucher, and we would help them with the voucher, the top up voucher, the first few times, and then we say, well, no, actually, you've got to go and get it and do it yourself. So we will help them. We'll do it for them. We'll then show them how to do it, and then we'll supervise them when they do it. So we really do, as they get older, we change how we approach them.
Yeah.
We not approach them, support them.
Yeah. You talk about global citizens.
Ah, yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, so the children are they're third culture. They're not, once they've been here for a while, as in when I lived overseas, my children were third culture. So they have an understanding and an empathy with British education, with British values, with British behaviour. And so they managed to merge that with their home country. But when you come to boarding school in the UK, more so than any other country, there are lots of internationals. So, and particularly in the boarding house. So the students are not just mixing with Brits, they're mixing with children from all over the world. And so they really have a very good understanding of other our kids, British kids and all the others. And they really do become global citizens. Some of our students, it's a pathway. British boarding school is a pathway to British university, and they want to come to Britain because we've got some of the best universities in the world. The States has a few more in the high ranking, the QS ranking, and then Britain, and then the other countries fall behind us. But so it is a pathway, but others want to go on to other international, other countries and to universities there, and the British education will take you anywhere. The qualifications will take you anywhere in the world. So all students are different, but we can support them get into universities around the world. But they all have a good understanding and empathy with other nationals, and particularly when they're with us. Maybe if they'll stay with the host, we would never put two of the same language or culture or nationality together. We would have them with somebody different, so that they're always learning. Yeah.
And Lorna, okay, so we've got two things: academic families. Interested in why did you choose that as a name, and maybe aligned with that is the little ceramic bothies that you give to people. So tell us a bit about the background to those two things.
Well, choosing a name for business is so difficult, as everybody knows.
Yeah.
I was the international student coordinator for overseas students when I was at St Andrews University, and St Andrews University has a tradition of third years. It's a 4-year course, but third years becoming academic parents and looking after first years. It's a great university, great way of getting vertical integration in the university, because then every child will then end up with siblings with their mother and also with their father. And then they will probably have flatmates who will have others. So it's a really great way of everybody mixing. And when I was the international student coordinator, I was also an academic mother to many of the international students. When I was looking for names, it was quite good to have a name that began with an A, or certainly close to the beginning of the alphabet, which has proven to be a great idea. And we tried with all sorts of things, with guardianship, all sorts of things, but I always knew I wanted to be beyond. I didn't want to only be a guardian agency. I wanted to be throughout the whole area of education as well. And I just couldn't get academic families out of my head. It just kept coming back to academic families. So that's what we are. But also the family side of it, that really is important to us, that these children are far from their own homes and their own families. And so we very much want to nurture them and to include them in our families, British family, and also within the academic family, academic families family. Yeah. And one of the things, as you said there, a bothy. We have a little bothy, and I should have brought one, and I'm sorry. It's as most people will know, a bothy, you can go into they're maintained by the Bothy Association. They're in the hills. If you go hiking, particularly up north, if you're wet, sometimes happens in Scotland. If you're tired, if you need to rest, you can go in, you can cook, dry out, you can sleep there, and they protect you from the challenging environment around you. And that's what academic families does. We protect our children from all the challenges around them within our families. And what we do is we get these little bothies made painted in the academic families blue, and we give them to our children and to their parents, and we give them to schools, we give them to all our friends, we always thought, well, that was quite a clever sort of branding, sort of marketing thing. But we had one student, well, many, but in particular one lady, a mum, and her son had started in the prep school. And then, so he'd been in the UK at boarding school 8 years. And she said to me when he left, she was so grateful for everything we'd done for him and that journey. And she said that always, when she missed him, especially in the early years, she would look at her little blue house, but her bothy, and she would always know that he had his, and that there was that connection, and that he was safe, and that we were looking after him. And she said that it got her through many years and many dark days. So she was all emotional. Of course, I got all emotional as well. But we never really understood the power of the bothy and that association. And we've had so many families that tell us that. We get staff at school, the boarding house parents will sidle up to us and say, I haven't been bothied yet. Oh, okay. So because staff move around and everybody takes their bothy with them, and it would be sitting on their desk at work, or in the boarding house, or the admissions office, or wherever. And when they move on, they take it too, and everybody goes, "Oh, the bothies have gone." Oh, so we're forever supplying bothies to people. So, and they're handmade up north, and it's quite funny because whenever we order them by the ton, but whenever we order them, they say, "Well, where are they going to now?" And go, "Oh, well, they're off to these countries." So, yeah. Very powerful, and much more so than we thought.
Amazing.
Wow. So we're actually, I don't know if you know, but we've got some royalty with us. Because you actually have, well, almost. You actually, it would only be fair to...
Oh, courtesy. Come on, boys, a courtesy.
But do you get awarded an MBE?
Yes.
Tell us about it.
Well, I was very humbled, and in the King's first birthday honours list in June, I received an MBE for services to young people. Brilliant. And I'm probably all emotional now, but anyway, it was I am going to get emotional. Okay. Yeah, a huge honour. Recognising the work with my education charity in Kenya and supporting children there for 20 odd years, and also involved with guiding in Kenya as well, and training leaders and doing lots of things with them, and also academic families. And I'm self-motivated. I love what I do, and I'm very excited by it, and I have enough recognition. I'm happy. I don't need recognition for what I do. But having been given the MBE, being awarded the MBE, it actually sort of it just took me by surprise at how nice it is. And lots of people have come out of the woodwork that I haven't seen or heard of for years, who've heard and have congratulated me, and it's I'm really chuffed. Really chuffed. Yeah.
Go on. Can you remember when you got notified? I don't suppose it was a text message, was it?
It was a letter. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was a letter on behalf of the of actual Rishi Sunak, who was minded to propose that I would be awarded an MBE, and he would propose that to the King, but I had to accept it. I think they don't want people to turn them down, so I hadn't been awarded it. I just was notified that they were thinking of awarding it, and if they did, then and the King did agree, would I then be happy to accept it? So at that point, so you have to respond and say yes, but they tell you it's confidential. You can't tell them. It comes about it 4 weeks beforehand, and then you just have to wait and just grin. I told Richard obviously, but didn't tell anybody else. Just grinning and thinking, crying actually. We both cried, crying quite a bit to start with, then grinning, and then got to the final letter, the letter saying that it was all happening on his birthday list, and then I've had this. The First Minister obviously has congratulated me. Did quite a few official recognition for it. And I go down on the 19th of December. They asked me if I'd like to go to Holyrood House, and I did say yes, that would be lovely, but I would actually quite like to go south, because being meant to live here, I would quite like to go down there. And so I'm going to Windsor Castle.
And would you pay the flight as well?
No, well, it was costing a fortune, but that's not the point. But anyway, and it's lovely because you're allowed to take visitors. And I asked, how many people is that? And they said, you can take 3 usually. So I thought, oh, usually, well, that's good. So, that's,
Usually.
so how many does that go up to then? And he said, well, it's normally your partner and your children. I said, okay, well, that's good. I've got my husband and my
I've got 400
son.
children.
And then I said, but what about my mum?
Oh, nice.
And I said, would I be allowed 4? And he said, yep. So the form comes, you need to complete it when it's got 3. He said, just put a 4th one. So I thought, oh, that's great. And then I thought, oh, well, actually, my son, finding the date, there was a bit of confusion. But anyway, and my daughter-in-law is American, and they were actually delayed their flight to the States for Christmas. And so I said, well, please, could she come as well? But that was pushing it a little too far. They said, no, 4 was the max. So possibly, so usually 3, but sometimes 4 and definitely not 5. So anyway, that's what they've said. But anyway, I'm still hopeful that we'll be able to wangle. She's coming anyway. She'll be around because we're going to have a lovely celebration. We'll go around Windsor and do lots of things. So.
It's so typical of you, just to push the boundaries and just see what's possible.
With the king.
I like that. I love that. I love it.
Why not?
Yeah,
That's what it's all about. Why not? If you don't ask nicely, you don't get.
Yeah.
So
Nice
that's
twist
always.
on that, yeah.
So yeah. So I'm really chuffed about that. So
Very good.
What is your guiding principle in business?
Integrity, I think. But for us, it really is. It is that child-centered focus, doing what I suppose is what we believe is right for the child, and fighting for that actually, and being professional in everything that we do. There are lots of corners that we could cut. There are lots of things that we could, but we don't. When I was in Entrepreneurial Spark, there were lots of young guys with all these fabulous business plans. They're all going to be multimillionaires in 10 minutes. And they were going to grow their businesses so fast. And I've grown my business, and we've scaled it, and we're there. We're scaling, we're doing, and we're way our turnover and everything is way past where they were. But they were doing it very fast, but we've done it slowly and with good business practice. And I think that we stuck to what we can't drop any balls. We cannot make a mistake on anything we do, because we're talking about a child's life and their education and their dreams and everything. We have to get it right. We don't when we place children, we get commission from schools. That's the business model. And we could put them into schools that give us lots of commission. There's some schools that have fabulous matrices. The more children you send, the more money you get. And if it's a percentage and their fees are high, oh, great. But and we know that lots and lots of agents will send children to some of these schools, and we don't. So my admissions, my placement team, they have to make sure that we have an agreement in place. But that's it. Then that's taken away from them. That's my commercial side, and that's it. And as far as they're concerned, it is about getting that right school. It doesn't matter whether the commission is here or what it is. Then, and sometimes there's some school we place them, and because the parents have introduced another school as well that doesn't offer commission, because some of them don't. And so we do a huge amount of work, and the child goes to another school, and we don't get anything for it. It's very rare, but it does happen. But if that's the right school for the child, then that's it. I don't think there's a chapter on that in the business manuals. But that's
right.
what we do. It's what's right from there for them. And we're good. We're professional. We're good, and we're proud. We're a proud, happy team, and we work really well together. And and it's always trying to develop everybody in the team as well.
Congratulations on what you've done. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Lorna, thank you so much for joining us,
Thank
and
you.
good luck in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.